Sounds like football, baby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Fantasy Football Smackdown. I'm your host, Kyle August. It is Saturday, just prior to Week 12 kicking off. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. Of course, there were already 6 teams that played this last Thursday. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed those, found some fantasy points. I know there were some disappointing performances, but still a long way to go this upcoming Sunday as everybody's looking to make that playoff push. Appreciate checking out today's show, Waiver Wire Sniping for Week 13. If you're newer to this show, it's these are the guys you should be stashing on those last couple spots on your bench so that you can beat the waiver wire heading into Week 13. So let's just dive right into it. Take a look. There's going to be 4 teams on bye next week. We got the Panthers, Browns, Colts, and Titans. So there are 2 more bye weeks still. There's 2 teams off in Week 14 as well. So bye weeks aren't over yet. And this is the last one with 4 teams on bye. So make sure you're prepped. Make sure you're taking a look ahead a little bit. As you know, we're looking at those playoffs, how they're shaping up. Usually one game will make the difference a lot of the time. So always good to make sure that your team is locked and loaded, ready to go. Quarterback streamers for Week 13. Not a lot of good options, to be honest. I'm back to the Taylor Heineke shrug picture here, as you're seeing on the YouTube. Taylor Heineke against the Raiders, 34% owned. He's really up and down, but I think he's really your best bet, pretty far and away. I put Tyrod Taylor as number 2 on here just due to the rushing. What we saw from him in the passing game was pretty putrid in Week 11. So hopefully we see a little bit of an uptick there. And then I feel pretty comfortable starting him as a streamer. He's only 10% owned. After that, you got the statue guys pretty much. Matt Ryan, Jimmy G. Matt Ryan's playing the Bucs, 48% owned. Jimmy G's got Seattle on the road, a divisional matchup. Garoppolo, after a few 20-point games in a row, is 15 points the last couple of games each. So, and then Daniel Jones and the inept Giants offense got their OC fired. He is 5th on this list against the Dolphins at 28% owned. So if you're streaming, if you have one of your quarterback, you were streaming Cam Newton as an example, I think Heineke is probably your best bet. Tyrod is somebody that might give you a decent enough floor, but I don't think any of these guys are, 25 points in the bag. I think just those top couple guys might be the option to even get you to 20. All right, running back. No, this is stash time, baby. At this point in the season, you probably have your starters. You probably even have your bench reserve guys you can kind of plug and play if in case of emergency. I have 10 running backs on here, and that's a combination of guys that you can maybe plug and play as a spot start if you need, but also to some of the high-value handcuffs that should start to become more owned. So Alexander Madison's been floating back and forth around 50% threshold, which is what I use for all my waiver wire players. He's sub 50, so he's number 1. He's by far and away the best handcuff that's readily available. He needs to be stashed on your team, whether you're the Dalvin Cook owner or not. Ty Johnson at 39% owned. I think he's going to get his opportunity to be as close to the lead back as you're going to see with the Jets with Michael Carter out. Carter's expected to miss 2 to 3 weeks, so Johnson being under 50% owned doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm stashing him, if anything, again, for keep away factor. Donta Foreman, 44% owned, has been dropped in a bunch of leagues. I know he didn't perform well for the Titans in Week 11. I don't expect him to have a great game in Week 12 either. But with the Titans cutting Adrian Peterson, I think that shows that I think it's Foreman's backfield as far as most of the rushing downs work. I think last week we just saw Hilliard being way more involved in that offense due to the game script getting way out of whack. The Titans need to get healthy. They're in for a tough battle this week in Week 12 against the Patriots, and then they're heading into a bye week. So Foreman is, a stash that you're looking to play maybe in like 3 weeks, but he's still a guy that I'm trying to keep on my roster. Sony Michel, next to Madison's the second most high-valued handcuff, in my opinion, 27% owned. He should be more owned widely, especially if you're the Henderson owner. Latavius Murray, 34% owned. I think he's taken the back seat to Freeman from what we saw last week, but still that's an offense that if they do flip it back to what it was pre-injury, Murray's going to have a lot of value, 34% owned. He needs to be rostered. Rex Burkhead, he's coming off 16 carries for pretty much like 18 yards. He has a great matchup this week against the Jets, but going forward, we'll see. If he's the primary ball carrier in deeper leagues, he probably should be closer to 15 to 20% owned. And then we got 4 more handcuff running backs that, again, I think are steps down from Madison and Michelle, in my opinion. But Devontae Booker, 36% owned. He's probably pretty close to them. But then you got Samaje Perine, Ronald Jones, and Jarrett Patterson. These are all players that I think you should be taking a look at to make sure that, if a team is in a playoff position that has one of those running backs, I don't see any problem with jumping ahead, stashing them now, play keep away a bit if you have those extra roster spots. Start trimming off that fat if there's players that you don't need. If you have a backup quarterback that you're not going to need anymore, that you're through the bye weeks, or a second tight end that you don't need, you need to be using those roster spots for high-value handcuff running backs just in case, because you never know what's going to happen there. And you can't always count either. Sometimes I know in leagues where maybe I've used up all my fab money, if it's earlier in the season, is that if there's a team ahead of me in the standings that loses, X running back, there's sometimes another team lower in the standings that okay, they're going to grab that player. But as you get closer and closer to the playoffs, there's less and less teams looking on the wire. So I definitely using those roster spots to stash players rather than, to play keep away, rather than stashing guys that, I can potentially play this guy because the bye weeks are running out. All right, wide receivers, not a ton of great options, but if I had to roster one player on this entire show, it would be Van Jefferson. His ownership percentage actually went down this week to 47. He was at 49, so he's been featured on this show last week on Waiver Wire Sniping, the Waiver Wire show post week 11 as well. There's no reason this guy shouldn't be way more owned. With Robert Woods going out, I know they signed Odell Beckham Jr., but I think Jefferson's the man. He was getting plenty of targets in that first game as well. He needs to be more owned. Go grab this guy right now. Laviska Shenault, 40% owned. He was another guy that was high up my waiver wire priority list. With Agnew going down with an injury, I think Chenault's going to see an uptick of targets as well. Rondell Moore at 22% owned. I know the Cardinals are on a bye this week, but post-bye, see if they shake things up a little bit. I loved his targets a couple weeks ago. They're all short area, but if he's working his way into this offense more during his rookie campaign, he's a guy that I want to see. I don't know that it will be Elijah Moore level. He's been pretty hot over the last month, but I think Rondell Moore has that upside once Kyler Murray's back. Nick Westbrook-Ikhine for the Titans. We know A.J. Brown's already been ruled out for the Week 12 game. Julio Jones forever injured. The Titans heading into a bye. This is a tougher guy to stash, but in deeper leagues, I'd still just keep an eye on him. And then Darius Slayton. It sounds like Tony's going to be out this week. Shepard's already been ruled out. This is a banged-up offense, and maybe he works his way into some playing time. So, again, not a guy that I'm prioritizing, though, and that's it. Those are the stashes, really, that I could come up with. With 6 teams playing on Thursday, there's less guys available on the wire because they have to run through waivers next week. But I think ultimately Jefferson, Shenault for sure, more definitely in consideration, at least in 12-team leagues. And then past that, you're probably letting it pass. Go get a handcuff running back. Tight end streamers for week 13. You got Dan Arnold against the Rams. I think he has a bounce back game this week against the Falcons, 37% owned. Then the usual suspects after that. Tyler Conklin gets the Lions, 34% owned, looking for that touchdown. That's about where he's at. Evan Ingram against Miami, 32% owned. We'll see how much he's involved this week with Tony and Shepard being out. Maybe they use him a little bit more in the slot. But if those are multi-week injuries for those players, it's already been for Shepard. If Tony's out another week, he was ruled out on Friday pretty much as being labeled doubtful. Ingram at 32% owned could be a good streamer. And then Gerald Everett, who's one good game, one not so great game after the Seahawks returned with Russell Wilson. I think Everett's still worth a look at 25% owned. If Arnold, Conklin are not available, I think him and Ingram are pretty close to one another. DST streamers, this is it. I mentioned Van Jefferson is kind of being the top ad. If you don't want to stash a handcuff running back, if you're looking for a player you can actually use, the Minnesota Vikings DST going up against the Detroit Lions, 16% owned. You need to go grab these guys right now. Anybody against the Lions is a must-play DST. They're going to be top 12, and they're out there in over 80% of leagues. So go grab the Vikings. Beyond that, Dolphins against the Giants, 43% owned, and the Chiefs against the Broncos, 26% owned. Just looking for DSTs that are playing up against inept offenses. So there you have it. That's waiver wire sniping for week 13. Again, just take a look, set your lineup. Once you're set, trim that fat off and add these guys as stash candidates. I think this is the time of year we're going to be talking a lot more about those handcuff running backs, trying to play keep way, if anything else, if not protecting your own starting running back down the stretch. So with that, hope all you guys had a great Thanksgiving Day holiday. Hopefully you guys were able to check out the long show that we recorded, and Memphis was kind enough to break up into podcast for us. Was a ton of fun hanging out with those guys, but we're going to be back to the regularly scheduled programming next week here on the DWZ network across the board. So I'll be back here next Tuesday with the Waiver Wire show following the Week 12 action, getting you set. So until then, you guys take it easy. Good luck in Week 12, and we'll catch you next week. See ya.